Who is Marchelle Thurman?
Marchelle Thurman. I am a actor, writer, producer, director, and voiceover artist. So a lot of hyphens. Originally from Chicago, suburbs of Chicago. Been in New York for almost 20 years, and kind of split my time between New York and Atlanta as well. But I'm a content creator, and I like telling stories. And so I'm really excited that I get to do that.
Awesome. You mentioned several titles, several hats.
Yeah.
Actor, writer, producer, director. Which one did you start with?
Acting. So I wish I had a really good story about this, but I know I was about 12 when I decided that I wanted to be an actor. And I truly don't know what precipitated that. But at 12, I decided I wanted to be an actor. I did a program at Northwestern going into my senior year of high school, where we studied theater for 5 weeks. And I kind of said to myself, well, if I'm sick of studying theater after this 5 weeks, this should not be my profession. But I absolutely loved it. And so I went to NYU, I studied drama there, got my degree. And so I've been acting professionally since I graduated. So really all of my hyphens uh, kind of support acting, really. And they all kind of developed into allowing myself to just give me roles that I just wasn't getting from other people. So
Mhm.
it's about creating those opportunities for yourself. And even right now with the strike, which is a lot, but because I also create my own content, I'm still able to still be creatively fulfilled, even though I'm not obviously auditioning nearly as much because I am in SAG. So it just gives you freedom, and I like that.
So you are in SAG. I was going to ask you if you are union or non-union. Is it okay if I ask, how do you feel about the current climate um, of the actor strike? And then also, if you have any words for the writer strike, um, what are your thoughts on things and how it all is going, and where do you see us going forward?
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't have a crystal ball, so I wish I could be like, it will end this way or this time. But so I am in SAG. I'm not a member of the WGA, so I can't specifically really speak to their needs. But I will say this: um, I do think things need to change, and it is kind of scary seeing that like all work has stopped. I mean, I think that's terrifying for everybody that's in the union, but I think all of us know that it's for a greater good. And sometimes you have to make those sacrifices for a short term to just get some long-term gains. And I think a lot of things that they're fighting for is true. Like we shouldn't be in an age where a writer and actor can't make a living doing that. It's just things have changed so much and people need to be paid accordingly. So I definitely believe in that. AI is a lot. um, but AI isn't going anywhere.
Right.
So I think that we have to embrace the benefits and where it can be useful, because I think there are definitely beneficial things to AI, of course, but I think we just have to be careful that we're not just giving away stuff and allowing our likeness to just be replicated without us being known. That's terrifying. So as long as there are just some what are the words? Not safety measures, but guidelines that are put in place so that
Yes.
something like that doesn't happen. I am all for it, and so we just have to figure out how we can embrace it, but make sure that we're still protected. Um, again, I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know how long it's going to last, but I think it's going to be a bit. I think it's going to be a couple more months.
I think this may, go on for the remainder of the year, possibly.
Yeah.
Um, Hopefully, we will come to some sort of conclusion and some sort of agreement, before the top of the year, because people do need to work and people do need to
Mhm.
get paid. Um, and like you said, it is very scary for the actors and the writers. I'm not in any union, so
Mhm.
but I do understand well, I try to understand what you all are going through, and I do see that there are, you know, a multitude of issues that need to be tackled, and that's part of the reason why I started this platform, to be able to create change and be the change that you want to see. That's kind of how I see things. So outside of acting,
Mhm.
how did you get into screenwriting?
So I watched, ooh, I think the name of it is Tiny Furniture. It was Lena Dunham's one of her first films.
Uh,
And this was right before Girls started. So everyone was like so excited for Girls, way back when. And I was like, let me check out this Lena Dunham person. And so what really inspired me was seeing that she drew so much from her own life. And you know, the story of Write What You Know. And
mhm,
so I said, well, you know, surely I have a story that I can tell that could be of interest to people. And so this was, I was 23 at the time. And one of my very close friends had passed away. It was an accidental death. He was only 25. And it really shocked me because I'd had older relatives pass away. And
mhm.
obviously that's sad, but, they lived a full life. It's different from someone who's 25. They're so young. And so that inspired me to write a web series dealing with a group of friends dealing with the loss of a friend. And so I wrote that in 2013 and filmed the first season in 2013. And that was kind of my first foray into it. So I've never really taken an actual class. Like I've done kind of workshops and things of that nature. But it's just really kind of stemmed from that. So I wrote two seasons of Through 25 and then Black, White, and the Grays that I wrote with Casey Nelson. That was kind of my third project, I guess technically second project that I've written. And obviously that's a totally different beast because it's a feature, not a web series. And it
Right.
was much later. So I mean, we're talking, I don't know, 5, 6 years later. Um, but yeah, that's how I got into originally into screenwriting, and that I acted in it, wrote, and produced.
If you acted, wrote, and produced it, you had somebody else direct. Is that correct?
Yes, yes, yes. That was I kind of had never and I had thought about it. I was like, do I want to direct? And it wasn't really ever something that I was super excited about. It was really more about writing and producing. And I know I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but to Black, White, and the Grays, me and Casey weren't originally gonna direct it either. We were gonna hire someone, but money,
Right.
money and COVID. So trying to keep the set with as least amount of people as possible, and also it was such a specific vision, and we really wanted to make sure that it wasn't misinterpreted because it could be easy to really misinterpret. Because we kind of walk the line on a lot of things, and we wanted
Yes.
to make sure that things weren't misinterpreted and swayed to one side or the other. And so it was actually a producer, Jay Jablonski, who was like, well, why don't you guys direct it? So Casey, I think, had directed like one or two things before, but it was a lot. And I've learned, again, I know I'm kind of jumping ahead, but I have learned so much from directing. So much is like insane.
Uh,
But I will never act and direct again. I learned that lesson. I'm amazed at anybody who could do it. Casey loved it, and Casey said that he'll do that again. I will never do that again. That just doesn't, for my process as an actor, it
uh,
puts me too much in my head, and that just it doesn't work for me. But I do want to direct again down the line. I think I want to wait a couple of years before I tackle that, but I would like to tackle directing again. Going back to Through 25, really coming from like the producing side, because once you're writing and you're kind of on set, you're kind of done writing. I wasn't doing like rewrites or anything like that. But from producing, it was really helpful to kind of see the bigger picture. Because an actor, like you just walk in and you're kind of be a little bit myopic. But by seeing all these different parts, you realize, okay, well, I'm just one piece of this huge puzzle, and I think it helps you be a better actor because you're like, okay, well, this is my job. So let me do my job effectively, get out of the way for other people to do their job, but just do my job as effectively as I can and then move out of the way.
right.
And that's kind of how and also if I need to help, be willing to help. I get it. We've done indie sets where everybody's doing everything. So being willing to collaborate, being helpful, but also knowing knowing my place, not in a like a condescending way, but just like understand where I fit in the bigger picture.
You mentioned earlier, as far as not wanting to act and direct at the same time. I had a question in regards to that, and you said that you were too much in your head. Was it the fact that, as you were doing the takes, you would go back and look at the takes and say, I think I could do this better, or I didn't like the angle, or what was it that that kind of drew you away from wanting to do both at the same time?
So because it was an indie set and the script is 96 pages and it's pretty verbose. I mean, it almost reads like a play. And even what you saw right now, the runtime is 1 hour and 39 minutes. The
Mhm.
first cut with all the scenes was 2 hours and 11 minutes.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Yeah, so we're like, that's too long. We can't be putting that out. That's too long. But um because so it was 96 pages, we filmed it in 15 days, which is a lot.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, sorry, actually, that's not a lot
But
for
that
that
is
many
pretty,
pages.
right. That's pretty extensive for an indie film, though. 15 days.
True.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But because of the time frame, we actually did not have time to go back and look at camera. So I never was able to act in a scene and go back and look at the tape,
Oh,
which that actually would have been beneficial for me because I'm very used to, as an actor now with self tapes, you look at the tape and I'm able to look back at it. And I got over how I look on camera. I don't care about that anymore. But I
mhm.
can really look at my work and technically speaking, say, okay, this needs to be changed. My eyeline needs to go there at this point. Like you can kind of self direct a little bit. And so I'm very used to working in that manner, but we didn't have a time to do that. So it was really working with Casey, giving each other feedback. Jay Jablonski, the producer, who also played Mike in the film, he was on set, and all me, Casey, and Jay all met in an acting class. And so we're all actors. We all kind of have a shared language. We all had a lot of trust.
Mhm.
So Jay was so instrumental. And because he was behind camera when me and Casey were acting, he was kind of our third eye. So he'd be looking at the camera and be like, okay, he'd give us direction, he'd push us.
Mhm.
Our DP was great. I mean, he would give feedback, he would help so much with angles and things like that. So it really was like the trust in other people, the trust in me and Casey. But with all of that, because I couldn't actually see what it looked like, that's sometimes how it got me in my head at times. And so
Gotcha.
I think just working that way
Yeah.
was hard. It was just hard for me.
Okay. And that's understandable. I was just
Yeah.
curious because I do know from doing some filming myself,
Mm-hmm.
uh, not necessarily me in particular, but some of the folks that I filmed, they always want to go back and look at the footage, and
Yeah.
they feel like they can do it over again. And I might think that the take is good, but they're
Mm-hmm.
like, no, this is trash. I know I can do better, So
Right, right, right,
that's why I
right.
was curious as to why you feel that you don't think that you can do both. And you might revisit that later in life,
That's true. Yeah. Yeah.
but just
100% that's true.
right
Mhm.
now, you're more comfortable either
Mhm.
acting or directing, but not necessarily.
Correct. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Through 25, that was your
Mhm.
first project, and then
Yes.
after through 25, you did Black, White, and the Grays.
Correct. Yes.
And you co-wrote that, or did you write it with the actors, Casey, and what was the other guy's name? Mike.
Jay Jablonski is a producer. He played Mike in the film.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. So me and Casey co-wrote Black, White, and the Grays. Yeah. So Casey originally had the idea. We were in acting class together, and he called me in June of 2020, and he was like, "I have this idea for a film. Are you interested?" And I was like, "Yeah." So and we decided to write it together, and I think it's really amazing that obviously me and Casey have different backgrounds coming together to write this film. I think it was really beautiful to get all these different perspectives,
Yeah.
which is kind of the point of the film.
Yes.
So I think it was really awesome to have like a Black woman and a white man link arms and try to navigate this story. So that's originally, yes, how that started.
I thought it was a really good story. It's very introspective. It made you think at times, and I'm glad that you both were able to pull off the the polarizing aspects of it, and gave both perspectives and gave points to both perspectives.
Yeah.
So it didn't seem, to me, it didn't seem where, one side was more ignorant than the other. It was
Hmm.
very informative, and the argument was very real. I could see myself walking into a room and hearing,
Hmm.
those arguments, without giving away the topics of the film. But
Hmm.
I thought it was really good, and very in depth, very good dialogue. I'm not sure if you've been told any of this about your film, but I see that the film has been getting a lot of accolades and awards, and being accepted to several film festivals, which is awesome. Um,
Yeah.
how does that all make you feel?
Yeah, it's been an interesting journey to say the least. A lot of ups and downs, but we actually, it's funny, we thought we were done with our film festival run and we just got asked to be in another festival. We actually play tomorrow and Sunday. And in theory, at the Wild Rivers Film Festival in Oregon, that will be our last one. But it's been really, it's been really amazing because, we wrote the film, we love it, we're fans of it, but you never know what an audience is going to think. You know what I mean? Art is so subjective. And so to be able to go to festivals, and at every single festival we got into, we either won an award or multiple awards, or were at least nominated, is a lot. And that, like, it's obviously it's nice to have the awards and get that recognition. Like, I'm not gonna lie and be like, that's horrible. I mean, obviously it's nice, but to me, the biggest gift that I've had from going to festivals is meeting people and connecting with other amazing filmmakers. I mean, that's been the gift that keeps on giving. And I made really good friends from this whole festival circuit, but also just talking to people who saw the film and who were genuinely touched by it or felt seen. That, to me, those conversations, like, that's why you create art, because you want to create something where when someone leaves the theater or the movie, whatever, that they are fundamentally changed in some way.
Yes,
And to be able to do that is, it's a gift and it's an honor. So that to me is what is more important than an award. So
I agree, and I felt several times, you were able to draw out the emotion,
mhm.
and the passion that each of you had for the specific topics that were being discussed, and debated. And yeah, it can cause rifts. It
It
really can.
can.
And I'm glad that you were able to portray that in such an authentic manner that made sense. It didn't seem too far-fetched. And it was relatable and it was real.
Thank
Yeah,
you. I
yeah,
appreciate that.
I really enjoyed the film. I turned it on not knowing what to expect. I watched the trailer for it first,
Right,
and,
right, right.
and that's how I became familiar with you. Uh,
Hmm.
but once I turned it on and I started watching, I was like, oh man, this is
This is
good.
a ride. The
um,
ride.
and can you go into a little bit more detail in regards to the festival circuit, and
Mhm.
what that experience really is like, when you go in person, you attend in person.
Mhm.
How important is it to attend festivals, and really, what do you get out of it
Mhm.
on top of having your film accepted to the festival? But what else
Mhm.
do you get out of attending these festivals?
Yeah. Oh my God. Oh my Lord. I've learned so much from festivals because I'd only been to a couple as an actor. And it's different, I think, going as an actor than as a director and producer.
Mhm.
Um, so I think, look, we all it traveling to festivals is expensive, and most festivals will not pay. There are some that do, but there are very few that pay you, so you're really coming out of pocket.
Mhm.
So if you are a content creator, you need to make sure, I like, this is very important, you need to make sure you bake into your budget submissions for festivals because it's not cheap, and if you can, a little bit of money for travel. But I think that it is so important, if you can, to attend the festivals, um, for two reasons. I think they're huge networking events.
Right.
And again, like that's one of the biggest things that I have learned is like meeting people and collaborating. I mean, a handful of films I've done this year are all from people that I met at festivals. And literally this week or tomorrow, I'm talking to someone who's like, I have a role for you in my next film, and I'm participating in a reading for a film on Sunday. These are all from people that I met actually at the same festival. But it's super important, and you become fans of other people's work, and you're just inspired, and you basically get a pass to watch a bunch of films. So going to the festivals is important, and also especially if it's an out of town festival where you're not based, if
Hmm.
you want people to see your film, you kind of have to go and promote it. So I was there, I had my postcards, I was talking to random people, trying to get them to come to my screening. It's tough and it's not necessarily fun, but you're like, if I want butts in the seats, then I have to do it because I've been to some festivals where it's not the filmmaker's fault, obviously, but the screenings were definitely a lot lighter because the director, people with the film weren't there. And again, it's not their fault. We get it. You can't go to every festival, but if you can, there's a huge benefit to attending.
You're saying as far as a part of the process, once you get there, um,
Mhm.
it's a lot of boots on the ground, hustling, networking, speaking to people,
Yes,
and basically pitching yourself time and time again until your film debuts. And then
it
after
is. Yeah.
and then after that, you have you receive the feedback.
Hmm. Yes.
What is that experience like once you are getting the feedback
Mhm.
from the viewers after they've watched your film?
It's really awesome. Like the Q&As were amazing. People asked some really good questions. Sometimes I was stumped. I was like, okay. But no, just hearing how it affected people, the questions they would ask. The Q&As are wonderful. I love that. Just, dissecting film and just telling our story. That was amazing. And I also think I also want to point out that like, yes, obviously you have to promote your film, but I think it's equally as important to support other people.
Right.
So if you're like, look, if you came to my film, I am going to make it find it to come to your film. You know what I mean? Like it has to be reciprocal because you can't just be like take, take, take.
Mhm.
It has to be, it has to go both ways. So I was going, that's what I was saying. Like I was going to so many films because I was like, hey, I just want to see film. I love movies, but it's also, I want to support these other people and I want to see their work as well. So I think it's really important to, go to all the events if you can, see as much as you can, friend them on Instagram. I mean, that was a big thing, especially before I would go to festivals, I would look to see what movies are going to be there. I'd reach out to the filmmakers and be like, hey, when is your film screening? Great, I will be there. Mine is screening at this time. Hopefully you can make it. And I would go to the festival already with a handful of people that I'd already made, like we're not best friends, but a loose connection with.
Broke
And
the
then
ice.
again, and then you continue to meet people when you're there. But that was huge. And I think a really good thing to do if you're going to festivals and you don't know anybody.
Yeah, I agree. I think it is definitely good to reach out to folks, especially beforehand. But
Hmm.
not only that, it's once you touch down, you have people that you can talk to, you can interact
Yeah.
with, you can see what else it is that they're doing. Maybe they've been on the festival circuit before,
Hmm.
and so they can kind of give you the lay of the land of how things work.
Hmm.
So I think it's definitely beneficial to do that, and
Yeah.
it doesn't hurt because the
Yeah.
more people you're connected to, the more opportunity, like you were saying.
Yeah. 100%.
Who inspired you to get into the acting world?
Oh my God. I'm trying to think of like the first person I was like, I want to do that. But I mean, just in terms of now, I can say like actresses that I've always just been like the holy grail. I mean, I know this is probably everyone probably says it, but it's true. Like Angela Bassett. I mean, like,
She's the queen.
period. I don't have to say, I don't have to elaborate. We all know. Just her work is just so amazing, so grounded, so powerful. Um, Her, Viola Davis. I mean, I know I'm probably saying all the ones that like everyone always says. um, but they're they're the goats for a reason. You know what I mean? There's something that they bring that is just so powerful and so amazing, and it's really inspiring. But also, I look at actors and content creators like a Kerry Washington or an Issa Rae. Like Issa Rae actually was another one of my influences in terms of writing my web series because it was right around the time like Awkward Black Girl had really started. It was a little bit more known, and obviously we see from there to where she is now, like what has happened with that.
Yes.
Um, and you know, with Kerry Washington and Simpson Street, like her producing work. I mean, those are kind of the people that really inspire me now, people that are actors but really create their own work. It can be done, and so for me, I draw huge inspiration from both of them.
Okay. And now, as far as writing is concerned, who are your major influences in writing? And let me also add to that, what do you, if you have a specific genre that you enjoy writing or you enjoy watching uh,
Mm-hmm.
for the writing, what would
Yeah. I mean, I love indies. There's something just what's honest
Mhm.
honest about it. And not again, not that like big tent poles can't be honest, but I think there's something
It's more raw.
gritty. Yeah, I would say like gritty, raw. There's something about that that I'm really attracted to. And so when I think of someone who I'm really inspired by, well, he writes and directs, is Barry Jenkins. Like, I mean,
Yes.
anything he does just like rocks me to the core. I mean, if Beale Street can talk,
Yeah.
everything I was like,
And it's very
this is
artistic.
cinema.
Yes, it's
Yeah.
very artistic as well.
Yeah.
He also incorporates the right music, I feel, for the scenes.
Oh, everything.
Um,
Nicholas Britell is a genius. I mean, his score and Ashley, which is really a little tidbit, a little inside info. So when we were working with the composer, who is amazing, for Black, White, and the Grays, we were trying to find a song for. I'm not giving anything away, but there's like a scene where we play like Truth or Dare in the middle, where we're kind of like
yes.
falling in love. Yeah. So we were trying to figure out, work with the composer, trying to figure out like what to do for that section, and I gave him, I think it's called, I don't know if it's agape or agape. I think it's agape maybe,
Yeah.
but it's from If Beale Street Can Talk. I was like, I like this song as my inspiration. I was like, I want it to sound like these two people are falling in love. And if
Right.
you hear it, you can kind of hear hints of it. But then he wrote that song, and I was like, it's my favorite song that we have in the
I'll have to
film.
go
And it
back.
was inspired by that.
I'll have to go back and listen because I was watching it at night, so it wasn't super loud, but I
Yeah,
will
yeah,
go
yeah.
back and listen and see if I can pick up on that. That's
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah.
So that's pretty
So,
cool. Um,
yeah.
moving forward, what if you're able to speak on them? Are you currently working on any new projects?
Well, we're still working on Black, White, and the Grays in terms of we got distribution, so it's out on Amazon, Google Play, YouTube, hopefully more platforms soon. And just dealing with like marketing and spreading the word. So that's still it's a lot. I mean, we started this what in June, July of 2020, going on 3 years. We're still not done, so it's a commitment. But I am working on a short that I need to write. It's been kind of in my mind, and I've written like the first few pages. But it's a really personal story, and it deals with grief. And I think at the time, I just wasn't quite ready to tackle it, if I'm being really honest. And now I feel like I have a little bit more space. And especially with the strike, it's like, well, I'm not auditioning as much, so I got a little bit more time.
You got nothing but
Um,
time.
I got nothing, got nothing but time. So I want to start working on that. So that's the short that I want to do next because I also think diving back into a feature, I'm like, I don't think I have the capacity for that right now. But there also is another feature that a friend who I met in the on the film festival circuit, a very good friend of mine, she gave me the script. She's amazing, and she's like, "Here's a script. You can do whatever you want with it." So that's going to be the next thing that I will act in and produce. Probably won't direct it. But so I have two things that are kind of lined up, and always talking about collaborating with other people as well. So there might be other things that fall on my plate. But Yeah, so everything is kind of in the developmental stage, but there definitely are things that I kind of have lined up for the next year or two.
Let's talk a little bit about your writing process.
Hmm.
Um, and whether it's a feature or short, I'm not sure if you write differently
Hmm.
depending on what it is that you're writing. But how do you get started? And when I say how do you get started, as in like what is your process? What is
Hmm.
Marchelle's process?
So it's honestly, it's been kind of different for everything. A lot of times it's an idea. Sometimes I'll outline it, sometimes I won't. There's actually a feature, I actually forgot about it. My God. There's a feature that I may be like, that's crazy. I was like, oh, I'm about halfway through. I think I'm in like 50 pages in. Um, and that one I just wanted to actually write without having an outline. So that one was really just kind of like stream of consciousness. But most of my other stuff I do kind of outline, or at least have an idea of like, not necessarily an outline, but major points, and then you kind of fill it in.
Know where you want
But
to
yeah, know where you want to go.
be.
Like even with the short, like I kind of have an idea of where I want to go, and I think I have to kind of sit down and kind of figure out major points and then kind of fill it in. That's normally how I like to work. And then it's rewrites, 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 it's workshopping. I actually really enjoy writing with other people. I know that that's weird. A lot of people don't like to do that, but I like collaborating. I like I mean, I process things by talking things out. So by writing with other people, I feel like that just really clicks with how my mind works.
Mhm.
But me and Casey, when we wrote Black, White, and the Grays, it was actually very separate. We basically would write ideas for scenes, share it with each other, and then kind of piece it together. Like we didn't have an outline. The scenes were written all out of order. And they were just kind of like, oh, I have an idea for a scene. Let's try that. And magically it came together because it's kind of crazy and disorganized how we did it, but it worked. So yeah, that's how we
It,
did Black, White, and the Grays.
yeah, I mean, you might have written it fragmented, but the way
Hmm.
it was directed and edited, it
Hmm.
doesn't come across as fragmented. And I like the fact that you decided to go with different months and what was happening within those months, and broke it down that way. So that way, it while watching it, it made sense. It gave it a timeline, and
Hmm.
um, it was easy to follow. I didn't feel lost anywhere in the story.
That's awesome. Yeah, we tried to make it as specific as we could because, again, 2020 was not that long ago. It's easy to be like, well, that wasn't happening in April of 2020. We were all just there. So, even when it comes to when you look at the screen and there was like data on like COVID cases, when I was looking at stuff, I was like, it needs to be in the month of June or it needs to be in the month of August because we were all just there and we want it to be as accurate as possible. And it's crazy sometimes when I look at the film, I'm almost transported. It's like, oh my God, that's how I felt in May of 2020, or that's how I felt in September of 2020. It's kind of like a time capsule. It's kind of like a time capsule in a way, which is kind of cool.
It is. It really is. I like the fact that you guys were able to come together and write a story like this. And it is also important to point out when you are doing an indie film and you are working it like you are currently working it, it takes time. It's not going to be a few months and then after that you move on to the next project. You're going to be pushing this for quite a bit of time
Mhm.
to get it in front of as many eyes and to get it as known as possible so that way
Mhm.
it picks up traction once you get distribution, which you now have. uh,
Mhm.
are you able to talk at all as far as what the process was to get the distribution?
Yeah, we can talk about it.
What I guess where did you start in that process? Once the film was done, you were
Mhm.
ready to put it on platforms. Um, how did you seek distribution?
Yeah, so it was a long, hard road. It was difficult. I'm not gonna lie. I think a lot of it had to do with the timing. It was like nobody was buying stuff. The genre, people normally sci-fi, horror, that stuff sells. People really want that. A drama, hard to sell, especially when you have no names and we have no name actors in this. So
Right.
we kind of had like our back, like not backs against the wall, but it was definitely, it was tough. And so we worked with a company that kind of acted as our sales agent. And so they basically reached out to different distributors with our film, and they were huge fans of the film. So they're still supporting us now, and we're grateful to have our partnership. And they would reach out, and we had a couple people that were interested, but a lot of people said no for a lot of the factors that I said. And so then we were like, well, maybe we'll do self distribution, which is definitely, something that's possible. A lot of people do that, use a film aggregator, get your stuff on, and you have a pretty generous split, but you're doing a lot of the work. And we were kind of thinking about that. And then we reached out to Indie Rights, who is our distributor. And I had some other filmmaker friends that have been with them, really liked them. And they actually almost do act as if they are a film aggregator because they will get it on the sites for you, but they don't do marketing. Um, but they're very transparent. And that's what especially this is like our first feature film. We
Mhm.
hear so many shady stories about distributors, and we just were trying to make sure that we could get the best deal that we could. And we're really, really grateful that we're with Indie Rights, and they're promoting it, and they've gotten it onto platforms. But it's tough. I'm not gonna lie. I didn't think it would be as tough as it was, but I'm glad that we were able to get it. And I don't know truthfully, if it's a little bit different now with the strike, like I actually don't even know how complicated that is
Right.
with acquiring content during the strike. I really can't speak to that, but yeah, it was tough. Not gonna lie.
It's good that you were able to point out the difficulties, and some of the process of what you experienced with distribution. The reason why I ask is because I
Mhm,
know there's a lot of indie filmmakers out there that probably want to know, how
mhm,
do I get my film onto
mhm.
certain certain platforms
Yeah,
and what that process is like.
yeah.
And I'm sure they might have heard horror stories as well, but um, I feel like it's important to know, certain steps of what you need to do in order to get to where you
Mhm.
are with your film Black, White, and the Grays.
And also, sorry, wanted to say, sometimes this does happen. I think people think that it always does, and I think it's a little bit rare, but sometimes certain festivals can help you with that, depending on what the festival is. I mean, look, if you're going to Sundance or South by or Tribeca and they see that, distributors, they're going to be there in watching your film. A lot of the smaller ones, maybe not so much, but you never know. There might be prizes that allow you maybe a meeting with the distributor, or maybe a distributor happens to be there. So that is also another reason why festivals can be helpful. I think, I'm not going to say that if you get into a festival, you're going to get distribution because that's not always
Right.
the case. But I'm just saying that also is another potential avenue.
Okay, that's good to know. I wasn't
Mhm.
aware of that. I haven't been to any festivals myself. I plan
Mhm.
on attending some in the very near future, and that's part of the reason why I was asking some of those questions because it also
Yeah,
piques my interest.
of course.
How long did it take for you to write Black, White, and the Grays?
We started in July of 2020, and we were basically done by, I think, September. We wrote it pretty fast
Mm,
because we were originally going to shoot it in um, November of 2020. And we ended up having to push it back to April of 2021, which was a blessing. But yeah, we were pretty much like ready to rock in about 2 months. We did it. We did it pretty fast. I think 6 to 8 weeks we wrote it and we were like ready to go.
mm.
So it was a pretty fast process, surprisingly.
And then, as far as the filming process from
Mhm.
beginning to end, when you started filming, and then when you finally, you said 15 days. You did say that. You said 15
Yeah,
days.
15 days. Yeah.
As far as scouting locations,
Mhm.
it was everything like bootstrapped, kind of grassroots.
Yeah.
I have a house or I have a friend. Is that
Oh yeah,
you
yeah.
guys
This is
did?
indie film. Yeah. So we filmed this outside of Atlanta, and that actually made it easier than if I was like filming this in New York. That would just be like not impossible, but it makes it a lot tougher.
Mhm.
But what was funny is like we just went through so many different locations, and that was also part of the reason why we had to push things back too. Like we'd have a location and it would fall through, and have a location and it fall through. And the location we got was actually through Casey's friends. She lived in the neighborhood, and it was this like huge subdivision, and everything we actually shot in two separate homes. So everything on the downstairs was like the main house, and actually everything upstairs was in another house that we shot in, but everything was in the neighborhood. And that made it helpful. It's like the basketball courts were in the neighborhood, then walking through the woods was in the neighborhood. So it made it really easy. There weren't too many like company moves because we were all just in the neighborhood. But yeah, it definitely was grassroots. And obviously we had to pay the people. It was like a family of five, I think. Um, but it was great because the house was super lived in, and it looked like there was very little set deck that we had to do because it was like,
Right.
well, this is what it looks like to have a house with kids. Done.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
everything looked very believable. Like
Mhm.
I said, it was a polished film through and through.
Thank you.
I watch a lot of indie projects as well, and not everybody has the budget and to be able
Yeah.
to pull something off, quite like you guys did.
Mhm.
But I also feel like a part of that is creativity and actually finding the right locations and doing the proper location scouting
Mhm.
and yeah, just pulling it all together and making it work. So that's why I feel like it's important to um, pay attention to those things too. I know people get excited to film
Mhm.
their projects, but you also want to make sure that the location that you scout and
Mhm.
um, the people you hire to act and do everything is really what you want. Because at the end of the day, um, it's going to reflect in the final.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and we got really lucky because most of the actors that we worked with were actually people from our acting class. Like we got super lucky, and we already had a relationship, and they were super talented actors. And some of our crew we already knew, some people we hired, but we got lucky because at the time COVID was still, the numbers were pretty high. A lot of stuff was still shut down. So we were able to work with people were able to work with us for a lot less than what they normally would charge, um, because they loved the film and they also like weren't working. So we got really, really blessed, and we got super talented people that work on like Marvel films and Netflix, like people that are at the top of their game that were willing to work on this indie film. Like our cast and crew were fantastic. So I really can't thank them enough for what they brought because they just upped the game so much. I mean, it looks like we spent way more. Like our budget was like, minuscule.
Right,
And if we were to shoot it now, our budget would probably be 2 to 3 times more, honestly.
right, for sure.
So we got really lucky that we got people that were just 100% pros, that were just willing to gift us our time and their talent. So we're really grateful for them.
Do you still submit? Do you still do actor submissions? And if you do,
Mhm.
are you comfortable with talking about like what platforms that you submit to or and what that process is like?
Yeah. So I think for every actor, I would say Actors Access, like you just have to be on it. Like there's no way around that. You just have to be on it.
Right.
Um, And I used to be a lot better at self-submitting, to be very honest. But that was also before I became a union, which I think it's a little bit harder to find union stuff that pays.
Mhm.
But I also have more representatives now. So I mostly have like my agents or my manager submitting on behalf of me. Um, that's honestly, most of the submissions are really done through them. I also have casting networks, and that's mostly for commercial work. You need it for that. There is another one, and I can't think of the name, but I don't really use that one.
The
Um,
backstage.
you know what? I never really used Backstage,
Okay.
but that is a bit, especially for theater.
Uh-huh.
Backstage, you have to have. But I was mostly focusing on TV and film. But yeah, I used to be religious about every day sitting down submitting. And I think especially when you're just starting out, that's super important. And again, I know I sound like a broken whatever clock bell. That's not even what it is. A broken whatever.
Record.
You know,
Yes.
broken something, broken object. But networking is so important. Going to whatever you can to meet other people and collaborate is super important. But yeah, definitely submitting. It's really important. And also taking I do occasionally like CD workshops, depending on where people are. Like I think in LA, it's a little bit dicey. I don't know. There's something like weird about that, but being able to get in front of agents or managers or casting directors who might not be familiar with your work, that's something that I think is really beneficial too. And if you're in SAG, they do offer some of that for free, so I do take advantage of that. But those are just ways just to try to get in front of people.
Awesome. So speaking with other actors, one actor I spoke with recently in particular, I was asking a question as far as when you do the submissions, and you pay for the service, and
Mm-hmm.
you submit for a particular role.
Mm-hmm.
Is it really just you submit off into the void and hope somebody responds, or I'm there's a
Yeah.
real reason why I asked that.
No, of course, of
But
course.
if you could speak to that first.
Yeah. No, I'm laughing because so many times it's like you submit a self tape and you're like, it goes to the void. Because I'm laughing because, I
It's the
understand that
process.
feeling. Yeah, that's the process. You're like, are they watching my tape? Did they get it? Like, what's happening? Um, but yeah, that kind of is the case. So, yeah, you pay, you have your headshot, your resume, just to submit. And then obviously, if you get it, you get the audition and then you submit that as well. It's different now. Things used to be a lot more in person, and that was better because you knew that they saw it because they were right in front of you. They couldn't
Right.
ignore it or fast forward or stop it. But yeah, it is a lot of kind of being put into the void. But there are certain things that, having it sounds annoying, but it is kind of true, like having a good headshot, making sure that your resume is formatted properly, and also just making sure you're submitting for the right things. We're not going to be right for every single role. So like be really specific, like, could I actually play this role?
Mhm.
I think that that is important. So those are just kind of little things you can do to kind of stand out. But ultimately, it's a numbers game. It's a
Yeah,
numbers game.
I'm sure
Yeah.
it can be partially numbers game, partially luck of the draw, and
Hmm.
partially, right place at the right time. Um,
Yeah.
that type of deal. But the reason why I ask is, um, within my platform, I'm also
Mhm.
looking to provide um, those particular services for actors, particular actors of color and
Mhm.
underrepresented um, backgrounds, diverse, all types of diverse backgrounds. Um,
Mhm.
and so I want to know, if anything, if there's anything that is potentially missing in that process that could be done better.
Mhm.
Um, if there's anything that, when you're going through that process that I wish I could do this, or I wish I could get this feedback.
Mhm.
What
Mhm.
would that to you,
Mm.
what would that be?
Ooh, that's a lot. My, I know you probably don't want to hear
No,
being someone who's
I
like
want you to be
developing this,
I want you to be
but
completely transparent, because it is important, and there's
mhm.
going to be other actors who
Yeah.
will feel the same way, and that's
Yeah.
part of the reason why I ask.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking kind of like right off the bat because I just had to do it because I had to update my reel.
Mhm.
Is it can get pricey, and obviously I know you are going to have to charge for these services. I'm not saying by any means give it away for free. Like you have
Right.
to charge people,
Sure.
but sometimes I feel like I just drop so much money to just like update my reel, to update my headshot, like all those things. I know obviously you do have to pay, but like cost it's a
Mhm.
lot. And like I'm lucky enough that I've saved enough money where I'm able to do that stuff, but it can be a lot. It can add up. And I think just making it like user friendly. Like I actually really do like Actors Access because it's easy. That was actually why with Backstage, and it probably has changed because I haven't looked at it in years. But when I was on it a while ago, I just had a hard time navigating and figuring out like how you actually submit, I was like, I this is a lot. I can't figure this out. So just really make it really like user friendly. Like you add it to the cart, you submit. That stuff is really helpful. In terms of feedback, I mean, I guess it's always good to know that it's been received.
Right.
But in terms of feedback, I guess that's hard because most of the time casting directors, they're watching so much that they just don't have the time to be like,
Reach
here's
out to
my
them.
written feedback, you know what I mean? Unless they want you to redo it for whatever reason. So that's kind of hard to guarantee that specifically. But I think, yeah, making it user friendly, making it not incredibly expensive as, if possible, and just a confirmation that it's been received is, or like it's been watched, even like it's been watched, like that would be great because you don't really get that now. You kind of get it's been sent to the casting director, and
Mm.
that's all you get. You don't get it's been watched, it's been liked, it's whatever. So that
Yeah.
could be maybe something interesting.
Okay. Okay. That's really good information. Good to know. And thank you for
Mm.
answering that for me. How long should your actor reel be when you are
Mm.
working on a new actor reel, for actors who are aspiring or
Mm.
might have already had some experience in the
Mm.
world? How long should your actor's reel be?
That's a good question because honestly, you will get different answers from different people.
Okay.
So I've heard kind of two things. I have heard 3 to 5 minutes. I've
Mhm.
also heard 1 minute or less. So I think it kind of depends. I know this is kind of not answering your question, but I think it depends on what you're trying to, what this reel is for.
Okay.
Um, I will say that shorter clips help because you want to be able to show like a range. But sometimes people will also have like a comedic reel, they have a dramatic reel, they have a commercial reel. So like you also can split things into like different genres,
Yes.
and that makes it helpful. But I think um, having I would probably say no more than like three, although I think my reel is like 3 minutes and like 20 seconds. But I would probably say like have
Three.
a 1 minute reel, have like a 3 minute ish reel, but I think also have your stuff in clips as well.
Mhm.
Because if you just want to send somebody a clip, you already have it. Because sometimes people, they're only going to watch 20 seconds of it. So just send them a really strong clip. Um, yeah, I would say that, but it varies. I literally have gotten different answers from different reps from different people. So um, you gotta you gotta do you sometimes. So
If you could only do one, um, which would it be? Acting, writing, or directing? From now on, if you could only do one from this moment on,
mhm.
which one would you choose?
Acting, hands down, 100%. That's an easy question.
That's your number one love. That's
Number one, yeah,
okay.
really everything I do supports is like a vehicle for acting. And I will actually say, with this process with Black, White, and the Grays, I've learned so much about producing. Um, and that like it really reignited like my love of producing. It's hard and there's also so many different types of producing you can do because there's like a line producer, there's an executive producer, there's and producer is such a vague term and it can mean so many different things.
Right.
But I really do enjoy producing and I really would actually like to produce a work that is not mine and see what that's like to not be so attached to it because everything I produce has also been my own work, so I'm like it's very close to me, but I think it'd be interesting to like step into something and produce someone else's work. That's something I definitely want to do in the next couple of years. I think that would be exciting, but acting hands down number one will
And
always be.
would it be acting on the independent route or
Mhm.
major networks? Both? Do you have a preference?
I mean, I say this and I don't like in a perfect world, if you just, make the perfect world that exists. Um, I would love to be a series regular on a TV show. I think that there's something really cool about living in a character for a long time. Because, you know, when you're, even if you're a lead in a film, you're probably max going to be shooting what, maybe 3 months? I mean, it might be longer if it's like a crazy, huge, like Marvel film or something like that. But like you're with the character for only that time and then you say goodbye to it. And I think living in a series and like seeing how they grow over the years, there's something really, really cool about that. But it's grueling. I mean, it is not for the faint of heart. I think people really don't know, you know, not saying obviously like, you know, acting is not brain surgery, but it's grueling work. It's long days on set. And I
Right.
think people really don't understand that. So it's work. It is work. It is a job. But to be able to have that would just be, that's something I envision. And
Mhm.
I hope will come to fruition.
And when you go into character,
Mhm.
who do you draw from? Do you draw from particular family members, friends? Uh,
Mhm.
who do you draw from?
Well, I always kind of, my first kind of way into a character is kind of figuring, seeing it through my lens, because that's always what's going to make every character unique is like my perspective. And obviously there are characters that are nothing like me, but it's finding like, okay, what is that one thread that I can like understand? And then you kind of, that's kind of how I first go in, is kind of through my eyes. But then yes, it's depending on the character, it's drawing from like either a friend, a family member, a type of person. Even sometimes it's like other characters on other TV shows. I'm like, oh, it's like that character on Insecure, or, you know,
Right.
whatever. Obviously, Insecure is on my mind. But yeah, and different inspirations. And also, you know, I a lot of times listen to like music playlists, and that kind of helps ground me. Like, what would this character listen to? Like, what world are they in?
Mhm.
That helps me a lot. Like, I love music. And so, that kind of helps me put me in the space. Even when I write, sometimes I'll write to specific music, and that kind of helps kind of get me into the mood. Like I had a whole playlist for Jordy, my character in Black, White, and the Grays, that I would listen to when I was like going over lines and doing work. I was like, okay, this is her playlist. So it was, but yeah, but also different characters, different roles require different ways, and sometimes it's never like the exact same way that you approach it. So
Right.
it's always a little bit different.
If you had a dream role, any dream role, what would that dream role be?
Ooh, like what character?
Yes.
Or
So
okay,
okay, let's make it a two part.
okay,
If you had a dream role or a particular character or somebody that you wanted to play, uh,
okay.
who would that be? And then also, if you have somebody that you would, who's your dream director, uh, or even a dream cast member to, you know, to work with.
Okay. Okay, so that's like three things. um, no, that's fine. I'm just making sure I clock it all, make sure I answer all your questions. So it sounds so weird, but I would love this. I have always wanted to play a spy. I think because honestly, what really inspired me, I loved Alias when I was growing up.
Huh?
I loved that show. And I was like, be able to play Sydney Bristow would just be so cool. So I want to play a character like Sydney Bristow. And I think just because I just seemed like someone who would never be a spy. I love kind of like subverting that. So
Right.
that would be my dream role. I think that would be so much fun. And then in terms of collaborator, so in terms of director, Barry Jenkins, because I just,
Barry Jenkins.
period. That's it. Him. And then in terms of cast member, oh my Lord. Oh, I don't know. That's so, I
There's a
really
lot
would
of
have
them.
to think
There's a
about
lot of
that. I
them.
know. I know. I feel like I'm saying the people that like I've already kind of said, but I feel like I would really, really love to work with Viola Davis. I mean, just to kind of see her process and what just, yeah. I mean, there are so many, but she's one that like,
What would be your role? Would it be dramatic? Would it be comedic? What would you want that scene to be with Viola Davis?
Probably dramatic.
Okay.
Probably dramatic. Yeah. I mean, I actually really enjoy doing comedy and I don't get to do it very often, especially, being based in New York, there aren't a ton of comedies that really film out here. That's mostly either in Atlanta or really in LA. So, we have a lot of procedurals here. So it's rare. But actually this pilot season, the handful of pilots that I auditioned for were mostly comedies. And that was actually really fun to get to kind of stretch that muscle because I just don't get those roles that often. But drama is where I feel like the most comfortable. That's most of my work, but comedy is fun. I really enjoy it.
Do you see a need for more representation as a Black woman within the industry?
100%. Yeah, 100%. And that's part of the reason why I want to create more content because so often I see things and I was like, there was nary a Black person in this writer's room because I can just tell, or like there was nary a woman in this writer's room because women do not talk like that. So,
Right.
I think it's really important to have representation just obviously for Black women, but I think for everything, there just needs to be more diversity on the whole in terms of writers rooms and in terms of what projects are greenlit because there's just so many stories that need to be told and they're being blocked. And so we really like to me what's so exciting is seeing like new fresh stories. And I think if we're going to have the same people that keep on greenlighting the same stuff, it's just going to be the same. We
Right.
need to see stuff that's new and everyone deserves for their voices to be heard. And I think that's one of my kind of artistic mantras is I want to create stuff that I wish 12-year-old Marchelle saw. Because so often when I would watch stuff when I was younger, I just wouldn't see anybody that looked like me, that talked like me, that acted like me on screen. And it makes you feel like your story isn't valid. And that's not true. So I think it's super important to see yourself reflected on TV screens, on big screens. That's really, really important.
Right. And since you mentioned 12-year old Marshall,
Mhm.
what would you tell 12-year-old? It's a tongue twister. What would you tell? What would you tell 12-year-old Marshall um, as an aspiring actor, writer, producer, director? What would your words of inspiration or encouragement be getting into this industry?
Yeah. I would say um, you are enough, you are worthy, and to trust yourself and to trust your instincts.
Well said. Well put.
Yeah.
That's enough right there.
Period
It
dot.
right. Period. um, it was so good talking to you today. I appreciate your time. I really enjoyed your film, Black, White, and the Grays.
Thank you.
Um, for the folks that are listening and watching, definitely check that out. Uh, if you could let them know where they can find it.
Yeah. Yes, yes. And I also just wanted to say, because I forgot to say that. Also part of our team, because I realized I had not mentioned her name, was Jessica Matthews. She was our line producer and producer. So she was instrumental in the film. So I want to give her shout out. But what's really been so important about this film is, we kind of touched on it. I don't want to give anything away, but it is really a story about compromise and finding a way to. We have a line in the film about finding peace in the gray. And I think that's what so many people are really connecting to is that we are in such a divided time. And so this is just a story about that and how do we navigate that. And I think there's something really powerful in that. So I just wanted to say that. But you can find us. We have our website, which is www.blackwhiteandthegrays.com, and that's Greys. We also have Instagram, Black, White, and the Grays, Greys. Those are really, you can find really most updates on our website and on Instagram. So those are the best ways to find us. And again, we're on Amazon, Google Play, and YouTube right now, and Tubi. So all four of those. for
Yes,
right now.
I watched your movie on Tubi. So folks who
Okay.
like
Yes.
to watch movies on Tubi, you can find it on Tubi. But
Yes.
like I said, Amazon, Google Play, and your website.
Yes.
Also, go check out the website, bring some traffic to the website,
Yes. 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 Yes.
more eyes the better, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
All right, take care, Marshall.
Okay. Have a good night.
You too. Take care.
Bye.